A dangerous plan is unfolding, the trap is set. Archangel Michael says, the air turns heavier as the hour approaches, and your spirit senses the shifting ground beneath your feet. The lines have been drawn quietly, far from open doors and warm lights. The first move has already happened in a room you have not seen. The plan moves like a shadow across water, quiet and certain, taking the shape of familiar footsteps. Friendly voices soften themselves and turn meaning sideways. A script is being rehearsed where your name appears without your consent. You feel it in the way silence lingers after a greeting. You notice it in the sudden tidiness of people who used to be messy. A trap works by convincing you that nothing unusual exists. This is not a random storm but a design with neat corners and hidden hinges. A message has been planted near your path to fold you into its center. The architect believes you will walk straight to the trigger without looking down. Someone has studied your patterns like a map. The routes you take, the doors you trust, the time you pause for breath have been measured. A mirror has been held to your life so that imitation can become a weapon. A harmless favor becomes the first thread. A casual errand becomes the second. Before long, a net forms out of small fibers that looked innocent on their own. A story about you circulates in low tones. It keeps the heart rate of a whisper. It braids truth and invention until even those who love you struggle to separate the strands. The plan carries a signature written by hands you once warmed by your own care. The paper smells like your past. The ink refuses to dry because the line needs to smear. A gift waits behind a door that used to welcome you. The card says your name correctly and even remembers a detail from years ago. The bow glitters like a warning dressed in celebration. You stand near a threshold that wants you to step without thinking. The pressure is arranged so that refusal looks unkind. Agreement looks elegant, and danger learns to smile. There is movement in the wires and the walls. Devices are set to catch a fragment of your voice. A sentence prepared for you is going to be turned into a confession. The evening gathers itself, making corners darker. Plans love twilight because edges blur then. In that blur, a second version of you is easiest to invent. You were never meant to be helpless in this moment. Strength has waited inside you, patient as a lighthouse. Calm is your first shield and precision is your second. You walk the corridor with your head high. Each footstep chooses intention over panic. The sound you make becomes the drum that scatters smaller fears. Your memory unfolds like a ledger with neat columns. Every small oddity takes its place on the page. Patterns appear where confusion tried to hide them. The trap feeds on hurry. You slow yourself to a pace you can own. Breath returns to its proper throne in your chest. You see the bait for what it is, not a gift but a handle. You see the smile for what it is, not warmth but a mask. You see the invitation for what it is, not inclusion but a corridor. The planner hopes you will play your old role. The planner believes you will reach for approval the way you once did. That belief becomes their weakness when you no longer need applause to be whole. A voice you trusted has been practicing a tremble. It wants to sound helpless, and it wants your rescue to be your undoing. It counts on your mercy to open the wrong door. You do not shut your heart, you focus it. Love remains love even when it refuses to walk into a pit. Compassion keeps its shape while wisdom chooses the path. You prepare your day like a room with clean lines. You place every object in mindful light. Clarity becomes furniture that cannot be moved by rumors. There is an envelope somewhere with your name on it. Inside waits a misprint that looks deliberate. The error is a flag stuck into false ground. There is a call scheduled under a friendly title. Inside the calendar event, the true subject hides behind a vague description. A harmless chat becomes a staging area. There is a photograph edited to lean away from truth. It will be pulled like a ribbon from a sleeve. It will be presented as evidence in a theater, not a court. The stage has curtains dressed in neighborly colors. The audience has been recruited by passing stories across fences. They sit ready to nod on cue. You bring your own light like a lantern that does not flicker. You manage the quiet the way a captain manages wind. You steer your hours the way a gardener arranges water. The person who set the first stone thinks you cannot see the exit. That person forgets how many storms you crossed before this path. They forget your footsteps learned iron long ago. You remember the day the first rumor tried to numb your courage. You remember the night you decided not to live someone else's script. Those decisions built muscle under your calm. You are not alone inside this hour. A steady guidance rides the length of your spine. Protection hums like a low note you can trust. A message arrives that says urgency but tastes like theater. It tries to give you a deadline shaped like fear. You read it once and let it sit without entering your bloodstream. A second message pretends to be relief. It offers to fix what it claims is broken. It invites you to click on a promise and walk through a painted door. You hold the line. You choose not to sign what has not earned your name. You choose not to answer what has not earned your voice. You place boundaries like bright tape around your peace. You clarify your consent the way the sun clarifies morning. Your yes becomes gold because it is rare and true. The planner has accounted for your worry but not your discipline. They calculated panic but not poise. They studied your reactions of yesterday and missed the steel in your today. A friend who knew your seasons is learning a new weather. That friend sees the difference between your old self and your present stance. In quiet, their loyalty uncurls from confusion. The trap creaks because it senses that you will not feed it. Mechanisms that required your rush begin to starve. Hinges rust on plans that waited for your fear. You listen for the honest rustle in the room. You hear the faint shuffle of someone moving pieces in places they do not own. You allow the sound to teach you where not to step. A stranger offers a shortcut in the language of kindness. The map they extend leaves out the cliffs. The itinerary forgets to mention the price of arrival. You honor your pace with sacred stubbornness. You keep your schedule like a promise to your future. You do not trade tomorrow's freedom for today's approval. You arrange your space so truth has room to breathe. You remove clutter made of other people's urgency. You invite clarity to sit at the head of your table. Names begin to slide out from the fog. The ones who nodded too quickly are visible now. The ones who spoke with careful vagueness reveal their alignment. You feel the relief that comes from naming a tide. Fear thrives in blur, it loses appetite in precise light. You call each element by what it is. A signature forged in a digital corner waits for a spotlight. A timestamp contradicts the lie it tried to support. A breadcrumb mislaid by careless hands becomes a bell. The plan used mirrors to multiply illusions. Your mind chooses windows instead. Vision clears because you prefer air over smoke. The night tries to deepen its drama, but your posture rewrites the scene. The trap expected a stumble and receives a straight spine. The floor under your feet decides to be loyal again. You allow truth to make a list without shaking. You allow stillness to do its slow work. You allow patience to gather the pieces and align them into sense. The architect of the scheme begins to fidget under the weight of their own design. Silence returns empty from the places they hoped would echo. The performance loses its audience because you refuse the stage. Your equilibrium invites unexpected allies. People who value clean air notice the smog and step forward. Quiet support becomes structure you can lean on without falling. You set your communications like clear waters. Every message from you carries steady tone and measured content. The plot cannot hook a voice that refuses to tangle. A door that felt urgent no longer vibrates at your name. Another door, simple and honest, opens by its own hinge. You choose the path that asks nothing from your integrity. Your energy returns where it belongs. The planner feels their leverage slipping like sand through closed fists. The power they borrowed from your attention goes back to you. You move like a lighthouse now. Signals meant to confuse you break against your clarity. Ships that once steered by rumor find steadier stars in your stance. A face that rehearsed deception loses its polish. It studies you with new caution and old misunderstanding. It mislabels your calm as a pause rather than a verdict. You mark the day not with fear but with alignment. You choose what belongs and release what does not. The release sounds like doors closing in soft, irreversible clicks. The architect tries one last arrangement of props. The bait grows brighter because desperation has no subtlety. Even those who once believed the show begin to see the wires. You set the terms of your hour with precision. You break bread only where trust is seated. You walk companioned only by those who treat your name like glass they do not scratch. A letter arrives without the tremor of deceit. It carries clarity instead of hooks. It speaks directly about what matters and leaves out the noise. You step into a morning that feels earned. The trap sits behind you like a museum exhibit. Lessons remain, fear does not. The plan that sought to collapse you instead collapses under its own repetition. Falsehoods exhaust themselves chasing a center that no longer yields. Your stillness becomes the end of their momentum. You return to your work with orderly joy. Nothing theatrical remains in your room. Necessity and care share the desk and pass notes of gratitude. You examine your boundaries with pride rather than apology. You honor the practices that kept you upright. You let endurance shine without fanfare. The hour that tried to swallow you becomes a stone under your foot. You step higher because you learned balance. You carry the wisdom without the weight. Those who watched from the edges learn something too. They see how contagious calm can be. They notice how dignity persuades without noise. You leave the old script on an empty chair. You decline the costume that never fit. You keep your real voice buttoned into your real life. The architect faces an unused trap and a finished performance. They look for someone to blame and meet their own reflection. Consequences, once outsourced, return to sender. You face your reflection and meet your own steadiness. You recognize the person who lived through dark corridors without betraying the light. You nod to the strength that never needed a spotlight to be real. You set your next small task and finish it. You take your next careful step and it holds. You return to the art of ordinary life, which was always the prize. The wind shifts and brings the scent of distance. The road ahead carries room for new names spoken kindly. The past stops tugging because the present holds. You plant new routines in soil that is finally yours again. You water them with simple attention. You let time do the slow work strong things require. The people who remain show themselves by the weight they carry with you. Shared weight turns into shared laughter. Shared endurance turns into shared warmth. You look around and find that nothing essential was taken from you. The theft failed because the key stayed in your keeping. Your sense of self did not sign the lie. The day closes without spectacle. Peace counts as a conclusion, not an intermission. You sleep with unargued breath. Somewhere, a file that once rattled has been closed. Somewhere, a mouth that once whispered has gone quiet. Somewhere, a plan that once moved like a snake lies still and becomes a lesson. You rise into the new chapter without announcing it. You do not need trumpets when feet know the ground. You do not need applause when truth holds your shoulders. From here, your life is not a defense but a direction. From here, strength no longer needs to prove itself. From here, safety is a practice you know how to keep. Old scenes lose their color because they no longer fit your vision. New scenes gather themselves around your purpose. The air tastes clear because you earned clear air. The chair where someone tried to seat your fear remains empty. The chair where courage sits stays warm. The table where choices are made belongs to you again. The trap dissolves in the rear view of your mind. The path widens in front of you. The word that matters most is forward. All the while, your heart keeps steady time. The clock inside you belongs to you alone. Every beat agrees with your chosen life. This is how a dangerous plan ends when you do not feed it. This is how a trap becomes a lesson when you stand inside your own light. This is how the next hour opens clean, because you kept your name clear. You gather your tools, your patience, and your quiet excellence. You move into tomorrow with measured confidence. You do not hurry, and you do not drift. What began as a scheme becomes a story of your strength. What began as pressure becomes proof. What began as theater becomes the quiet truth of your endurance. Your steps are your signature now. Your choices are your shield now. Your peace is your unbreakable proof now. You carry the light that found you and stayed. You carry the wisdom that arrived and rooted. You carry the calm that will not leave. The night offers its final echo and receives nothing back. The morning stands, simple and faithful. You meet it with the person you have become. Your name, intact, meets the world without flinching. Your voice, intact, says only what it means. Your spirit, intact, keeps its course. The dangerous plan has nothing left to move. The trap has nothing left to catch. You have nothing left to fear. If you wish to express your support further, you have the option to give super thanks, with contributions of up to $20. The morning arrives with a quiet that feels deliberate. A notification blinks on a device you keep face down. An attempt to authorize your name appears and vanishes like a hand at the edge of a curtain. You freeze only long enough to confirm the pattern. 3 small anomalies from last night line up like coordinates. The plan still breathes, but its rhythm is ragged. Your spine stays tall while your mind sharpens. You document the flicker without giving it fuel. Evidence replaces rumor, one clean note at a time. A second alert tries to masquerade as routine. The sender line carries a familiar abbreviation. The body carries an unfamiliar tone that tastes metallic. You forward it to a folder you created for moments like this. You label the time and the origin. You mark what the text tried to make you feel and you refuse to feel it. A call arrives and displays a name you used to answer blindly. Silence holds place while your thumb hovers. You let it roll to a message that says nothing and says everything. Your power sits in the space between impulse and action. That space widens until it feels like a room. In that room, you choose what enters and what leaves. You walk to the window with the certainty of someone who remembers their own center. The street below looks normal on purpose. Normal can be an actor when plots bloom. You brew a simple drink and let the ordinary ground you. The steam rises and draws a thin halo above the cup. Your heartbeat relaxes as if it trusts your hands again. A knock lands like a practiced gesture. It lands with polite firmness and borrowed patience. You wait, not to be stubborn, but to give truth time to surface. The knock repeats once and then gives up its urgency. Footsteps retreat with a trace of irritation. A card slides under the door that pretends to be helpful. You pick it up with 2 fingers and a calm breath. The logo on top is almost right but not right enough. Details betray a lie quicker than drama. You photograph the card on a neutral background. You record the texture, the gloss, and the edges. You store it beside the messages that tried to borrow your focus. A text arrives from someone who likes to claim they are between you and trouble. The text carries a link that promises simplicity. Simple and sincere are different languages. You open no doors that do not belong to you. You press no buttons that were designed elsewhere. You give no yes without a foundation. In a folder, you keep copies of what matters. Identifications, contracts, letters with clean signatures live in that order. Each file rests like a promise to your future self. You log into your accounts and check for movement. You review permissions like a gardener checks fences. You prune anything that climbs where it should not. A name appears in a list of access you never granted. The name is spelled with a single transposed letter. The trick looks small and aims to be invisible. You revoke it without ceremony. You rotate keys and refresh shields. You notify the places that protect you with language that is clear and steady. A message to a trusted ally reads like a true compass. It contains only what is needed and nothing else. It sets people in motion without panic. Your phone vibrates with the strength of a bridge rather than a flare. The reply from your ally is compact and exact. The next steps line up like stones across water. You move your day forward with deliberate grace. You meet your responsibilities in their proper order. Nothing in you agrees to chaos. An email lands from a clerk you have never met. It claims urgency and offers a shortcut that eats hours later. Polite traps sometimes sign their names as efficiency. You reply with a questionless statement that establishes boundaries. You state what you will provide and when you will provide it. You close the window and refuse to climb into a pit. You feel eyes on your timeline, not because paranoia wins, but because evidence points. Certain visits appear in pairs that fit the architect's habits. You let the pattern draw its own arrow. A car rolls past slower than traffic requires. It returns twice with a habit of glancing. The driver holds seriousness without context. You record plate and time and move on. You tell your day that it remains yours. You refuse to bow your hours to someone else's stage. Archangel Michael says, "Keep your center like a candle that holds shape against drafts." Move with method and let truth be the weight on your side of the scale. Your calm becomes the gate that plans cannot cross. Your inner weather steadies even as outer signals perform. The show grows louder because the audience is thinning. Noise imitates power until power arrives and asks for facts. A second knock comes dressed in authority. It carries a tone meant to push you off balance. It carries a clipboard that wants your signature to be its spine. You open with the chain set and the light behind you kept soft. You listen for specifics and receive a tangle. Vague authority wilts under clean requests for detail. You agree to nothing outside the written path. You route the conversation to channels that log properly. You hold the eye contact of someone who learned to be their own witness. A small tremor appears in the visitor's voice. A script line goes missing. The performance looks for a cue that no longer exists. They leave with the dignity of a retreat that tries to read as progress. The hallway holds the echo and then releases it. Your room exhales and resets. You take a walk where the sky can see you fully. Every step smooths the wrinkles in your nerves. Your pace tells your body that it remains safe inside your choices. The park path carries the smell of soil and the hush of leaves. A bench holds a view of people living actual lives. Reality can be the loudest protection when theater crowds the edges. A friend meets you and brings quiet gifts. They carry patience in one hand and respect in the other. They offer presence rather than solutions borrowed from noise. You speak without flooding the air. You lay out the facts like stones instead of confessions. Your friend listens with the intelligence of trust. Together, you decide what deserves attention. Together, you name what belongs to someone else's hunger. Together, you invite the day to be normal by choice. You return home with a list that makes sense. You check locks you already trust. You sweep the room with the eye of someone who refuses to be chased. A document you requested arrives from a precise source. It carries official marks and verifiable lines. It disagrees with the rumor in a way that ends debate. You file it where it can stand up later if needed. You let relief be quiet rather than theatrical. Quiet lasts longer when storms hang around. A message from an unknown number plays at honesty. It offers an apology you did not request. It attaches a voice note that bends toward innocence. You save it without commentary. You keep your language sparse and your awareness wide. You wait for the part where the play tells on itself. Evening returns with a softer face than yesterday. The window reflects a person learning and learned. You wear your survival without glitter and without apology. You review the chain of attempts like a teacher with red ink. You see the pattern that thought it was clever. You see the gaps where your steadiness widened the distance. The architect of the plan pushes one last piece onto the board. It is sloppy because fatigue dulls accuracy. It reaches for your attention the way a drowning hand reaches for air. You do not rush toward it. You let it float past and hit the shore of its own consequences. You do not breathe for other people's performances. A neighbor who knew you only in passing now greets you with clear respect. They saw enough to understand your restraint. They choose to withdraw from the chorus that once hummed. That choice starts a small unraveling. Threads of gossip lose tension when hands release them. The net meant for you sags and then slides to the floor. You sleep with the confidence of a house that has been walked by its caretaker. The roof above you belongs to your peace. The bed under you agrees to hold your rest. Morning brings a message from a firm whose words carry weight. They confirm receipt of what you sent. They confirm steps that proceed inside the shape of law. A door in your mind closes with a careful click. Another opens onto a field not owned by fear. Air moves through the new space without grit. You schedule a simple meal with someone who believed you from the first sentence. The table accepts both laughter and strategy. The plan that matters most now is your life, not their trap. You change small habits in ways that feel like fresh paint. You move a chair to reclaim a corner of sunlight. You set a boundary where attention once leaked. You read for a span of minutes that grows into an hour. Words unrelated to the plot of yesterday fill you with balance. Stories that are not about survival return you to being fully human. Afternoon slips its hand into evening with no alarms. The devices in your home hold their place and keep quiet. The street outside learns to mind its own rhythm. A letter arrives with real ink and real intention. It recognizes what you carried without trying to romanticize it. It offers help framed as partnership rather than rescue. You accept the part that fits and decline the part that does not. You keep your sovereignty while you welcome sane support. You build a circle where dignity is the password. The name behind the dangerous plan fades at the edges. This does not excuse, but it explains the distance you feel. Some stories end, not with a bang, but with your patience outlasting their push. You place one final file into a folder marked complete. You label your learning in language you can live with. You close the cabinet and let the room be a room again. Your calendar slowly changes shape. Appointments with tension leave their time slots. Appointments with growth take their place and thrive. You reclaim projects that slept while storms performed. You bring new attention to tasks that honor your gifts. You rejoin the threads of a life that asked to be lived, not defended. You offer gratitude to the parts of you that held. You offer rest to the parts that trembled and still delivered. You offer permission to enjoy what you protected. The mirror returns your gaze with mutual respect. The person looking back acknowledges the weight and the worth. The lines in your face read as evidence of wisdom rather than worry. You build a week that answers to you. It contains work and rest in honest portions. It contains people who speak names kindly and mean them. The car that used to circle is replaced by a different sky. The face that used to watch is replaced by your own reflection in storefront glass. The background hum forgets to threaten you. Small joys begin to stack in corners like books you love. A laugh arrives that does not carry a tremor. A song returns that does not belong to a memory of caution. You take a photo of a normal moment for no other reason than it exists. The image is proof of ordinary peace. The proof feels more miraculous than any spectacle. A message arrives from the ally who stood with you. It contains a single line confirming closure. The tone is dry and satisfying. You reply with precise thanks. The thread ends with no loose ends. The silence that follows is earned. You light a candle for yourself and call it completion. You speak your name into the room like a secret returned. The echo comes back steady and whole. You store your tools where they belong. You reset your devices with a clean slate. You tuck your resilience into the drawer beside the everyday. The house learns your new rhythm and approves. The clock learns your new pace and cooperates. The night learns your boundaries and stays outside. Distance grows between you and the stage you refused. That distance is not avoidance but clarity. That clarity frees energy for creation. You begin a small project that delights your hands. It grows under your patience the way trust grows under honesty. It reminds you that living well is a defense and an arrival. You send a message to someone who needs the steadiness you discovered. You keep it short and generous. You offer the map without the drama. A future unfolds that does not lean on fear for its outline. It leans on practice, choice, and unshakable alignment. It invites you to walk with your shoulders down and your eyes forward. The dangerous plan that unfolded learned your refusal. The trap that set itself learned your precision. The story that tried to capture you learned your freedom. You close the day with a breath that remains yours. You close the week with a cadence that remains kind. You close the chapter with a softness that remains strong. You open another chapter with both hands. You open it without spectacle and without apology. You open it because you can. The path ahead is not empty or crowded. It is measured by your stride and kept by your care. It widens as you walk it with honor. Your life continues beyond the plot that once called your name. Your purpose carries you beyond rooms that once cramped your lungs. Your peace expands to fit the